You know, Sarah Palin's been offering her thoughts on the media, feminism, and President Obama. They're out now in a new book, America by Heart, which hit bookstores yesterday. So here's the question. Is she also outlining a run for president in 2012? Joining me to discuss is Times' Jay Newton-Small, who's done a lot of coverage of Palin. And I see that you're pretty much through the book.
Almost.
Is there any doubt that she's running for president?
I mean, look, she hasn't declared, she hasn't formed an exploratory committee, but she certainly is out there, and not just, with this book, but also with her reality show on the Learning Channel, really making a case on why America needs change, essentially, or needs to get away from the Obama policies. And she's highly critical in her book about Obama, about his policies, about, the stimulus, about healthcare reform, even financial re-regulation. She's pretty detailed in her, criticisms of these bills, and also what she might do to change things if she were in power. So certainly this is a political book. Sure.
And before we get to some of the details, I heard the other day that there were people on the ground in Iowa looking for office space. What does that tell you?
Actually, no. I asked her staff about that, and they said that was just a rumor. It wasn't actually the truth. They're not looking for office space. They said, they swear. They said it was related to the book tour, and that it was a group called Physicians for Palin, and that they had mentioned something about the book tour looking for a space for her to perhaps have some downtime, but not like rent offices and hire staff kind of thing for a presidential run. But I mean, look, she's got the luxury.
You know how reporters are. We stay skeptical. Those guys weren't there checking corn and hog prices, were they?
I mean, her book tour's got 2 stops in Iowa, which is, again, very political. But I think that she's also got the luxury of a late entry if she does decide to run for president, because she's got the name recognition. She doesn't need to sort of like Tim Palante, who's the governor of Minnesota, sort of go out there and explain to people who he is, his biography. People already know who she is and her biography, so she can wait until May or June if she wants to throw her hat in the ring. So I think it's not something that we're going to find out whether or not she's running for many months.
If she waits that long, though, and there's another front runner who is emerged by then that becomes another battle.
Well, yes and no. I mean, she also has the luxury of being kind of a base whisperer. The base just loves her no matter what she does. And I think none of the other candidates out there have the same kind of sharp contrast that she's drawn with President Obama, and have the same kind of popularity, particularly with the Tea Parties.
Okay, let's talk about some of the things she says in the book. There seems to be a lot more content in this book than some people anticipated in terms of her actual positions.
No, I mean, I've been surprised reading it. I mean, because there were those excerpts that were leaked to Gawker, and those were all sort of the salacious things, like criticizing American Idol and Hillary Clinton, and talking about Bristol's former fiance Levi Johnston and how disappointed she is in him. But actually, I mean, a lot of it is very much going through policy by policy. Why she's a big believer in constitutional conservatism. Going back, she spends a lot of time quoting Alexis de Tocqueville and Thomas Jefferson. It's almost as if she's sort of saying page by page, look, Katie Couric, not only do I read all these things, and I read a wide breadth of things. And she quotes everything from emails that soldiers have sent her, and that her uncles sent her, to, again, historical writings, to newspapers and magazines. So she's got a wide breadth there.
And interestingly enough, she makes a point, I think, in the book, that both the Republican and the Democratic Party have strayed away from the kind of constitutional conservatism that she endorses.
Absolutely. I mean, she talks a lot about the 10th Amendment and saying how, this is all about empowering the states, and everything that's laid out in the Constitution, it's very strict. What the Constitution says is the purview of the federal government, and the federal government has vastly overstepped that in recent years, and how, the power really should go back to the states, and that's not the fault of just the Democrats, but also the Republicans. And she is very critical of the Republican establishment for doing too much to overstep their bounds in this area.
But of course, the money comes from Washington to do all of those things that they did, and that would be a problem, wouldn't it?
Exactly. And I mean, she talks about drawing the line, and she talks about how when she was governor, she refused to take some of the stimulus funds that she felt was growing the federal government. Now, she doesn't mention that this was 2% of the stimulus funds that were actually given to Alaska. It was, in fact, a tiny, tiny amount of money, but it was an ideological line that she drew, in which she then now can point to and say, there is time when to say when.
That became an issue, of course, in the campaign about whether she really stopped the funds to the so-called bridge to nowhere, or whether that was somewhere else in the process, and she was just taking credit for it. And the fact that what she did turn down was really a tiny amount.
Yeah, I mean, again, Alaska is the most heavily subsidized state in the union. So, I mean, every Alaskan gets about $9,000 a year back from the federal government, more than any other population. So it's a little, I think it's hard sometimes to make the case that she is pure, small government. But it is, she does try very hard to make that case here.
That could be a source calling you right now.
Yeah, sorry.
But
that might be her.
Hey, no problem. So, what are the odds that she runs?
I haven't. I think that just from watching her, that I think that she is going to run. I mean, that's just my own personal opinion, and talking to her staff and in talking to sources. But I just think that, she's done an amazing job of keeping her name in the news and really turning around from a year ago being this sort of half-term governor who everyone thought was, had her shooting star had been finished and that was it. She was done. And now, she's sort of queen bee of the Tea Partiers. She's got all these endorsements under her belt. She's the, if she wanted to, she's the front runner of the nomination. If she's not, then she's the kingmaker. So, either way, she's definitely a force to be reckoned with and not somebody to underestimate.
That's great. Jay Newton Small, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll be talking more about Sarah Palin for sure.